awesome. Ooh, okay. So thank you guys for coming to our second camp out. I very much appreciate the love and constant support. Before we start, I kind of want to give a quick thanks to everybody who helped us put this event together. One very big help that we have gotten, and from the beginning, is HCAP Studios. Can we get a quick clap? HCAP is a creative space for creatives of every level, from top to bottom, and they have been our biggest endorsement since we first started and we first started creating. We first started doing these kind of events. So thank you guys. I very much appreciate it. Thank you to Milly's Empanadas for providing the food. Thank you to Pass Blue Ribbon for providing the drinks. Much love to everybody. And let me tell you guys a little bit about our camp before we start. So our camp has 3 branches. We do these kind of events where we do social engagement projects, and we try to build a bridge between the creative and like the established creative and the lower rank creative, quote unquote. That's the goal of Campout. That's the goal of our camp, in a long-term conversation. Another branch is music. We have like a very big music branch where we have like about 3 of our members. They constantly create music and they constantly express themselves in that manner. And then we have a film, which is me and Gadiga. That's a big branch of ours. We're right now working on our first, I guess you could say, like, well-produced film. It's like there's about 20 people on board, so that's what I would call it. It's still a short film though. And today our topic is style, a compass or a cliff. We're talking about why it's important to establish yourself as like someone who has a narrative, but why it could also be constricting. So that's where the question lies: a compass or a cliff. So now I'm just gonna hand it off to you guys. Just kind of talk to you a little bit about yourselves, like why you think you're here, and yeah, just kind of like a little bit of summarization up to this point, as you could say. You want to start with you, Atomik?
All right. Hello, my name's Adam Vargas, also known as Atomik, and I'm born and raised here in Miami. I'm a spray can artist, and traveled the world painting my art, and very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, man. Do you want to pass over the mic to Gio for a second?
Hi, I'm Gio. I DJ. I go by Late Night. I do photography and graphic design. And also born and raised in Miami. Also extremely grateful to be here and invited to do this and be able to share some type of knowledge on identity, personality, and how it intertwines with our careers.
Big facts.
Hey guys, I'm Edny. I'm an artist, born and raised here too. Yeah, it's cool because I was here with your brother Gigi and the other panel. So being here and like being on the opposite end, I think is, thank you for that.
Of course, man. Yeah, Edny's also a visual artist. He practices it within the means of fine art, but he tries to break the construct where it's fine art, but it can also be leveled out and it becomes eye level with, like, the common consumer, I guess you could say. Ashley?
Hi everyone, I'm Ashley. I'm an event producer and a DJ from Miami. I've been doing creative stuff here since 2013, so about 7 years. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. And let's give him a quick round of applause before we start. It takes guts to be up here. I know you guys know. You guys have definitely been on a stage. So yeah, let's just like start off like where it needs to start, which is, I think it's a good space to talk to Atomik and then like kind of bridge everybody a little bit. If I could give a style trophy to somebody, I would probably give it to Atomik, just because you stuck to like this face that you've developed for a very long time. The orange. Can you tell us how the orange developed and where it came from?
I started painting the orange in 2008, and it was in response to the demolition of the Orange Bowl in Little Havana. And basically, I just did like a memorial for it. I painted a rooftop with Edge and Dunce. We climbed up onto a abandoned furniture store on Golden Glades, the old modern age. There's a Mercedes dealership there now. And I painted the orange, and I just got a good response from it. Better than what I have been doing for the previous let's say 10 or 15 years of writing my name and doing stylized letters and graffiti. And yeah, that's about it. It comes from the Orange Bowl. Now the Orange Bowl is long gone, and it kind of represents where I'm from, and it represents me, and that's pretty much the gist of it.
Of course, and like sticking to it, is that like a constantly a homage to like the Orange Bowl, or is it now become like your face, your name, or when did that bridge happen where it was no longer like a homage to the Orange Bowl?
I don't really know, to be honest, where. I mean, it comes from that. It's inspired from that. So I guess it will always represent that. If you know of Obi and the Miami Orange Bowl and you see my character, you might make the connection between the two. I Like I mentioned before, I've been painting since 1996 and writing my name, doing graffiti. So I told myself if I could do one thing and write only my name for 15 years or whatever, I still write my name, so let's say 25 years now, I could do it with this character. I could find ways to reinvent it and
Cool.
make it new or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's just along the lines of branding and advertising and imagery, where it's just less is more and repetition, and I just go with that notion for my work.
Sure. And I guess we could push on to like the fulfillment of repetition, because for instance I was talking to Edny earlier, and Edny was speaking along the facts how like you almost purposefully try to change what each one of your pieces means, like from piece to piece. Like you're almost like trying to break the barrier of like what you're come here. You're almost trying to break the barrier of what like your pieces are every other artwork. Like how might this like mindset not work for you? Like why doesn't it work for you?
In what way? Like what mindset?
Just like the constant repetition of an image.
It doesn't work for me. Period. Any Gene Joseph, because like I have like I don't like using the word identity anymore because it's like so cliche, but like it has a lot to do with the like how solid my identity is, so I have to like keep going. Like I don't have like I want to be a philosopher. I'm not an artist. Like I love thinking, but I have to,
Express it in a certain
I
way.
have to express it, visually, But it doesn't always work when like if I keep doing collages every day, I'm collage boy. But I'm not trying to be collage boy. I'm trying to be like a, someone whose thoughts matters, So in my case, it doesn't work for me because I just have too many different thoughts. I study too many different things for it to look like one thing.
Yeah, I can feel that. And then, like, I'm sure that you come from a spot where like you definitely have different thoughts and you definitely have different cravings as an artist. Do you feel like it's constrictive, constantly painting like that similar image?
Yeah, I mean, I can paint other things. I just choose to paint the orange all the time, just like I chose to paint my name all the time. I studied graphic design from 1999 to 2002, and I worked in that field till, let's say, 2010, 2012, more or less. So I'm very, I don't know, just like concentrated on one thing. But in the future, I would like to branch off and do other studies and bodies of work.
Cool. Nice. And then Gio and Ashley, you guys work within a different space where you guys like are constantly interacting with people, whether it be event planning or like you guys are both DJs. Do you guys feel like you commit to a style as well? I guess we can start with you, Ashley. Do you feel like you commit to a style, whether it be branding wise or music wise?
I think with branding, it's cool to stick to a style just because you want people to remember your brand and you want like people to see your logo or whatever it is and just know that it's you, or feel whatever it is that you want your brand to portray. When it comes to music, I don't really like to stick to a style. When I first started DJing, I really was into techno, and I was like, this is what I'm playing and this is what I'm feeling and this is what people are gonna get. But as time went on, I kind of got bored of it, and I realized that like that takes away the fun from it. So now I don't really stick to a certain style. I kind of just play what makes me feel good, and I feel like if I feel good, then other people will feel good, and other people will feel the energy. So that's kind of how I like to do my work. More like I don't really like to stick to just like the one style or one thing. I mostly just go based off of what I'm feeling in the moment or what message I'm trying to say or portray or who I'm trying to reach, really.
I get that. So like it's event based pretty much. So like depending on the audience, like you adjust. Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, cool. What about you, Gio? Do you feel like you've developed the name, and like is it constricting? Is it not?
Well, for me, I think I thought about it in a very strategic way. You know, build myself up first, and then be able to branch out to do what I want to do. Basically, build up the reputation that I can do whatever it is that I was trying to do. You know, build up the reputation that I was good at it, build a reputation that people respect me for my craft. And then once I get known for doing whatever it is that I was doing, I could break out of that and be like, since I've already proven myself to be good at this, there's no reason why I can't prove to be good at another aspect of it or to approach it from a different, you know, light or whatever it is. But yeah, it is very much so event-based, but as creatives, as artists, we have to consider ourselves first. If we're happy doing what we do, if when we're doing it, you know, do we feel good doing it? And I think that's probably the most important thing. So as a DJ, our career really revolves around making other people happy in the room, making them dance. But I guess we have a constant struggle being like, how do we make them happy by being happy ourselves? So it's kind of a sacrifice as a DJ. Like, it really comes down to, does it make you happy to make other people happy, you know? And then how you do it comes second, you know? How you do it is like, all right, now I've made everybody happy. How can I do it where I'm satisfied myself, I've satisfied my creative side to doing this in a way that I'm also enjoying it? But the main goal as a DJ is to make everybody in the room happy, dancing. But the creative side and the complicated part comes after the fact, learning how to do it in a creative way, learning to develop that style after the fact.
I want to talk a little bit about like the seed, because everybody starts somewhere. Everybody starts from a specific space. I was talking to Edny specifically about he started making in Miami Edison. Where's Miami Edison? What area?
It's
Miami?
in like Little Haiti. It's on 62nd where that I-95 exit is. You swoop down. You know.
Cool. Yeah. So you recently told me that art program got cut off, and that's like where you probably like saw the seed. You know, that's where you saw like, okay, that's where it started. That's where your conversation, your narrative, your dialogue started. Do you think it's necessary for everybody to have, or like, how do you feel specifically for like the Edison art program to be cut off? Is it a blow to the community?
Yes. Like we talked about yesterday. And anywhere you are, this has nothing to do with race. You only can be what you see, or what you hear about, which is why like Caribbean parents or anyone that's, you know, from an island thinks it's very ridiculous for a child to want to be an artist before a lawyer, because in their environment that wasn't the case. You know, had to do physical labor. So in Edison, it's not one of those places where there's always resources, and like usually sub-communities are doing things that are not for them. Basically what I'm saying is like that art program was a way to open people's minds. And now that it's gone, not saying that they won't be able, like we have the internet, so it doesn't really matter, but like as far as like immediate influence and immediate change cognitively, that probably slowed it down. Edison now that it's probably just like math. No one cares about math. Like over there, at least, no one cares about reading, especially with the history of literacy in Black communities. So it's I got lucky, like I said. Like if I had got there after, I'm definitely wouldn't be talking here. So
yeah, I get that. Atomik, where did you go to school?
My freshman year of high school, I went to Killian, which is right down the street from here. And then my folks moved to Southwest Broward, and I went to a school called Western.
Western.
It sucked.
Sucked.
And I was born and raised out here, and I was going to school with like a bunch of cowboys and rich kids. It was kind of wild.
Was there like a is that where the seed was placed? Is that where like you started following
Well,
things and whatnot?
I would say that in my situation, the seed was kind of nourished by my parents. They saw that I had a knack for art. So instead of going to my middle school in my neighborhood, which was Arvida, I went to Southwood. I had applied for the Magnet Arts program and was accepted. And I went to school in Palmetto in Southwood. They eventually kicked me out of Southwood towards the end of my second year, and they refused to submit my applications to Dash or New World so I could further my artistic pursuit or whatever. But I still stayed within the AP classes in high school. But graffiti is really what kept me in touch with my arts and nurtured that seed and allowed me to grow within the artist community. Because if it wasn't for graffiti, I wouldn't really have stayed with my art.
So it was outside of school. It wasn't necessarily in school.
It was kind of a mixture,
Mixture
because
both.
I ended up going to study graphic design after high school, so I was in the creative field or within the creative study still. But yeah, I think I would owe it to my folks for, like, you know, pushing me to apply myself towards the arts and you know, really like supporting it until I got arrested.
You can't say that without talking a little bit.
Yeah, they threw out all my graffiti supplies and all that stuff, and it was like,
Goddamn.
yeah, I wasn't really allowed to have markers and spray paint in my house anymore or whatever. That's besides the fact.
No crayons. So you were caught like graffitiing in like on the spot, or was it just because they recognized your
No.
face?
The first time I was arrested for doing graffiti was by the Dayland North Metro Rail Station. We were walking through the parking lot of the Dayland Mall, and we rode on some garbage dumpster. And I guess they had us on camera, and then like a little bit down, they arrested us. They didn't take us to jail. They just took us to the precinct or the station because we were minors. They didn't take us to juvie or whatever. They just had our parents come and get us. But
Which
that
is worse
changed
at
the
that age.
tone. That changed the tone of my parents' support for the graffiti side of what I was doing. Now they kept with the creative and, you know, said, hey, why don't you like apply to go to this technical college or whatever, the Art Institute, and I did that.
Cool. So I'm gonna come back to that conversation a little bit later, but Ashley, I wanna ask you a few things in regards to like 3 points and like in regards to like liability when you guys bring other artists in, just because I feel like that's like a big point of conversation with like using other people's work. Like, are you guys very careful when you guys put up other people's work, or is it like very freeing? I don't know. Like, can you tell us a little bit about the process?
Yeah, we usually have artists put up their own work just because they know how to do it best. And we provide security and insurance and all that stuff. So we're pretty like on top of it when it comes to that. Obviously, art is like a big part of the experience, so we want to make sure that everyone's safe, that everything's safe. Also, art is expensive, so, you know, it's a huge liability, but we make sure to handle that.
Of course. Yeah. By the way, this conversation is definitely open to like midway questions. So if anybody has any questions midway, like lift that hand up and shout it out. Like we're not gonna have a Q&A session necessarily, you know. So like it's very unabridged. So if you guys are comfortable, or if you guys have a question, you know, like raise that hand. Someone will poke me. Thank you. Oh, we got one. All right, talk to me, Juba.
Currently, I play a wide range of electronic music. I really like electro right now. I realize that bass is just something that makes me feel good, and it's like a way for me to process my emotions and what I'm feeling. So anything that's just like really hard, honestly, with a lot of bass and primarily electronic stuff. Yeah.
I think that it'll be a good bridge to like the rest of our conversation too if we bring it up now, Atomic. Um, uh, MSG crew in general, like you guys had a problem in Brooklyn where McDonald's used your work in an advertisement without permission, and then you guys won that lawsuit, but like it's interesting because like the way that the internet portrays it is very much like you guys won up and like it like helped you bridge your career. But when I was talking to you about it outside, you were like, oh, it's just like like it felt like it brought up mostly bad memories. Can you talking about it a little bit or?
No, it's not. It's not necessarily a bad memory at all, and I wouldn't say that it has to do anything with MSG. I represent MSG crew, so that's like a collective that I'm part of. You know, artists and mostly spray can artists that venture off into other creative fields. But yeah, A-Hole hit me up one morning and was like, hey, my lawyer has something that you might want to see. So I hit him up and he said, hey, you know, McDonald's in Europe is using your graphic or your mural in Brooklyn for one of their like bagel campaigns, like breakfast bagels or something. I was like, all right, cool, whatever, you know, like go through with it. You know, you have my like consent and get them for whatever you could get them for, you know, and I'm not going to mention a dollar amount. It wasn't like a huge payout, and it wasn't something that made or break or like make or broke my career or even catapulted it. I don't think it got that much media at all. There was other artists involved. It wasn't just myself. There was, I think, another 4 or 5 artists, and it was cool to get paid, you know. It was cool.
Did you feel disrespected when you saw it, or like it wasn't really like I'm sure A-Hole felt disrespected, but like it wasn't that much of a burden to you?
The way that they played his images with the American Eagle Outfitters was pretty like disrespectful towards him. They just used a video. It was literally a split second of one of my murals. So I didn't feel disrespected in any way. A lot of people have done worse, you know, have copied murals of mine and have, you know, painted stuff that I've done or whatever, but I didn't feel any negativity towards it. You know, I thought it was actually a like a plus, you know. So they liked it enough to use it out of all the art that's in New York City and Brooklyn and Bushwick, you know. It's cool.
It's interesting because like whenever anybody thinks about like liability and using the work, they always usually go to visual art. But there's definitely that space in like in music and in parties. Gio and Ashley, do you guys have you guys ever felt like someone might have ripped off like a type of event or party that you guys are trying to throw? I think you do, right? Can you pass the mic to Gio? Let's see. All right.
I mean, for me, we don't own any specific idea. You get me? Those could branch out organically from everybody. I think things get touchy when it's exact, when somebody finds your profile and takes word for word what you're doing. By all means, we come up with these ideas to educate people, to put people onto these ideas so they could also be aware of what we're trying to push. But I guess as an artist, yeah, you get a little territorial off these ideas that you come up with because it's such a beautiful organic thing that you work on with your team, you put effort into, and you know, you really try to go for it, and it's happy. And it's also like, you know, Atomik said, it's like a compliment when somebody rips something that you do because they find it that good to do so, you know, blatantly just take. And it's like, it's really not hard to just either work with that person to expand that idea where you're at, as opposed to being like, I'm gonna do it now. Just, you know, reach out to us and we'll go to your city and we'll do it with you, and it will be great, and we can all make money. Or like, do a version of it. The whole entire thing is, I guess, if I'm gonna be specific, you know, we threw a party called No Boys Allowed. There's a lot of factors about that party that were very touchy, a lot of things about that party that we really had to like thread lightly with. You know, I'm a guy starting first, you know, trying to just be an ally in the concept. And
Can you like define No Boys Allowed for the people who don't know about it?
yeah, so No Boys Allowed was a party that my team and I came up with that was specifically to create a safe space for the female audience who wanted to party to come dance freely. And the rules were that guys were allowed if they were invited through a girl. And that way that it was out of my control or out of my team's control on who came. It was up to the girls who were coming to bring whoever they wanted or whoever they trusted. And if one girl trusted that one guy, the rest of the girls in that room could feel like, hey, my fellow homegirl trusted him. I should be able to trust him too. So it was to put the control in, the hands of the audience, as opposed to like us curating who's going to be there. Again, I can't explain this every time we throw the party. I can't be like, hey guys, this is the point of the party. I could do that once or twice and hopefully everybody catches on. But, it's hard. But so of course, like with that being said, the party was already hard enough to do on its own. We try our best, we do what we can and try to figure it out. But I think it was something of an original concept on our end where, that's a classic rule for most clubs. Like, we don't want that many guys in there. It becomes too much of an aggressive energy or makes the female audience very uncomfortable when you have somebody breathing down your ear every 5 seconds. Like, people just want to dance. So, putting that into the world, putting that concept into the world, we tried our best. And like I said, I still want to push that message. I still want to like push that agenda of having a comfortable, safe space for females to come dance and, just play the background, play the music, have other people play music, and all be fun and free. But like I said, we would like to do that with other people as opposed to them being like, now we're going to do that the same way that you did it with your same rules and the same wording of your rules. And it's like, I'm glad that you're doing it. I'm glad that you're pushing this somewhere else. Great. That's the whole point. The whole point is to spread that across the world. But do your version of it or reach out. We are all trying to connect. We're artists that are all trying to bridge that gap and make that happen all around the world. Like, we would love to come and invest our funding into this. We would love to get our sponsors on board and make it the best that we possibly can. So it gets a little tricky. We're protective of our ideas. We don't own them. We want to push that message, but we would also appreciate if that like intellectual property was respected, of course.
Of course, yeah. Actually, I'm sure because right off the bat you told me that like you've dealt with nightlife culture like pretty much from like the beginning of your career. Like that's you're an event planner. Like that's what you that's the way that you talk to me about yourself. Is there ever any scenarios where like it becomes a little bit, because nightlife culture also definitely brings like a few like sketchy scenarios along with it. Like, have you ever felt like you're not in the right place, or has it felt like maybe you like to like push your interest in something else, or you've always been able to push things in like a safe, organic like environment, or like throughout the events you've done?
I don't know if I understand the question, but I'll answer it to the best of my ability.
Sure.
I think that like a lot of the work that I do is just like me surviving and trying to like make it.
Mm-hmm.
So like one thing just leads to another. Like I didn't know that I was going to be a DJ 7 years ago, or when I was in high school. I didn't know I was going to be doing events. I thought I was going to be a journalist, but it didn't work out that way. So I feel like I just sort of follow feelings or interests, blindly without any expectation, just out of pure interest and out of like curiosity, and it somehow manifests into what my life is today. Do I ever lose interest? I won't say that I lose interest, but I definitely like change. Like that's part of my personality. I like new things. I like new music, new places. I love traveling and seeing new cultures that inspire me. So do I get bored? No, but I do definitely need like constant like learning and experiences.
Like a second option, like kind of like that's probably why you dive into different mediums, right? Is like to be able to have
For
like
sure.
a
Yeah,
release.
like I'm never working just one job. Like usually I have a full-time job and I'm doing like 3 projects on the side, but that's just because I need that. I can't just like sit home. That's okay. Like there are certain people who can that don't need that, but for me I need that like movement in my life constantly to feel like I'm doing okay.
Good job. Edny, we have a question.
Actually, and you mentioned the no boys allowed. So I've been to some of the Master C events with Gunpower, and I really feel like that space is super empowering, and I really respect it because I don't think there's anything like that I've been to in Miami. Could you kind of like share with all of us like why it's important? Because I feel like maybe you can share some of the response you had from like the community about it.
For sure. So I'm part of this organization called FemPower, and we're a femme and queer empowerment organization. We do a lot of movement work and activist work. We also do parties and we teach DJ courses and art things. It's a very wide range, but it's basically an organization revolving around activism, art, music, and queerness. And so I would say that a couple of years ago, Helen, the founder, she came to me and was like asking me for suggestions of like femme DJs to book in Miami. And there were a few that came to mind, but they were like the same like 3 people that had been DJing for like 10 years. And so she's like, wow, there's actually a shortage of girl DJs in Miami. I really want to start a course to teach people how to play. That way, like, when they get good, we can just book them. And so she started this thing called Girls Can Spin, which was like a 6-week course where we taught people how to DJ. They learned how to mix, like how to find their style of music, all that kind of stuff. And then a couple of years after, we were all talking about like safe spaces and where like what we wanted in a party, and a lot of the members of FemPower are queer, and we didn't feel like comfortable going to like regular parties because like unfortunately queer people don't like I don't even know where to begin but like we just don't always feel comfortable, like we want to be around people who make us feel comfortable, where we don't feel judged, or we can dance freely, dress how we want, do all that kind of stuff. And there is a queer scene in Miami, but it's not like the same. It's a little bit more cliquey, it's basically like you're going to a regular party, but everyone's just gay, So we wanted a party that catered to Black and brown people, people of color, queer people. So we created this party, Masisi, which we created pricing tiers. So this was a little bit controversial, but like for us, this was really important. So I think it was if you were a Black or brown femme or a queer person, you could pay $5 and get in. If you were a Black gay male, it was $10. If you were a white gay person, it was 15, and if you're an ally, it's 25. And the reason why we did that is because, like, first of all, people of color get paid so much less, like, in work in general. Like, I don't even want to begin to talk about that because that's a whole other conversation, but, like, the gap in pay is so crazy that, like, we wanted to make sure that people who might not be able to afford $25, sorry, I went out yesterday, so my voice is cracking, but we wanted to make sure that like people who couldn't afford to go to a club could still go somewhere and have fun and enjoy themselves, but also know that like this space is for you. It's not like a space that we're appropriating and just saying it's for queer people. Like, this is for you. You're gonna pay less, you're gonna come in, and we're gonna make sure that you're having fun. So
yeah, I could see how it's controversial too, because like you're in a sense picking and choosing. Not picking and choosing. You have like
we're
the base.
prioritizing
Exactly.
people.
Yeah, exactly. Which is where like the conversation can get controversial. I could see that, but like it comes from like a good place because of the wage gap, because of like things of that sort. I think that could be a good segue into like Edny's work, because Edny's work does lay into like a controversial topic, mostly controversial topics. Do you want to talk about like, I guess you could say like themes that you deal with, or maybe something that you think that you've put out that has been more controversial? You could talk about a specific piece if you think that.
Since I talked about school, I'm going to talk about the last project I did for New World School of the Arts. I am the project was to make a cereal box, or like create a character and then create like a one cereal box and tarts, like Pop-Tart packaging and milk. And I was already gonna fail because I had like a problem with this professor that I don't want to get into because like it was pretty bad. But so since I was gonna fail, I might as well do this project how I want to without any sort of like guidelines. So the character, his name was Tyrese the Thief. He's like a drop of tar. His name is Tyrese. It's like stereotypical Black person's name, Black male name. Just obviously like, if we're having the same conversation right now, why I made those connections. and it was all just based on like the identity of like the inherent aggression of blackness, like on especially on a cereal box, something that's super mundane. You can put it in, like, if you picture yourself in the aisle, everything's happy, but Tariq the thief is happy. But if you put him in in the aisle, it just looks not like it's supposed to not be there. But I like pushing into those things that make like, and anything that would make me normally cringe, I go into it, like, aesthetics of like clandestine aesthetics, minstrel aesthetics, literature, like anything that I'm not supposed to touch, I touch it, because what happens is, like, and not that way. um,
No, I get you. You're talking about like the
Yeah, 'cause-
like. Yeah, I actually think that the words you specifically said, like things that make you cringe, because it's
Yeah.
like it's like a physical attribute to things that like might seem uncomfortable. Then you
yeah,
explore.
for sure. Yeah, because the way I'm looking at it is, everyone in this, like everyone that's listening right now, is afraid, happy, sad about certain things because of everything that like happened before them, even before they were born. So thinking about menstrual aesthetics, usually black people think about it and back away. I'd rather, for my sake, for my sanity, just understand why it was even cool to use humor to further the degradation of like black identities. So in order to figure that out, I have to watch, I have to partake, but in a clever way too. Just, I wouldn't just dive into it and not read about it, But a lot of cringeworthy stuff.
I think it brings me back to comfort. It brings me back to like the things that we make. You usually make them to make us happy or to make us like stable. Like they're forms of expression at the end of the day. So like that's actually like one of the biggest reasons why we were really pushing to have Atomik here, is because you've committed to an idea that now represents you. Do you feel comfortable with like that constant representation? Because I'm sure you have other thoughts. I'm sure you're like angry one day, you're sad one day. I'm sure that like all those things line up, but you paint the same face. Like, do you paint it differently? Is that your way of like expressing yourself, or is that face not necessarily used to express yourself?
I don't really express myself through my art. Like I said, I started off doing graffiti and I wrote my name, and that's a very like personal thing. So it's not like I have any emotions tied into my work now. The character that I was inspired from has a big smile, so naturally, it lets off that feeling. But I don't know, really. I do want to paint other things, like I mentioned before. I paint letters and different subject matter from time to time, but as I'm just going with what I just feel like I need to do more of my character and just do other mediums, I guess, Now get into sculpture, figurines, vinyl, clay, acrylic, resin, even metal or concrete or whatever. But
No, yeah, I get you. So like it's become more of a tool at this point. It's become more of a tool to like a branding tool in a sense. Like it's not necessarily like a form of expression.
correct.
Cool. All right. We can. By the way, Miles. How'd you convince your parents? how'd you bring your parents on board? Maybe we could go from right to left.
Okay. I guess I don't know if I'm like the perfect example, but so my mom always like supported me creatively. I always took art classes, dance classes, music since I was like 5. So she always like invested in me. Even like I wanted to be an actress once, and she put me in like modeling. Like like she always like helped me try to figure out what I wanted to do. her main concern though was that I needed to go to college and like get a degree, because if that doesn't work out, I need like a backup plan. But I definitely dropped out of college when I realized that what I wanted to do didn't need an education at the moment. I feel like college is great if you have access to it and if you know what you want to do and if your career or whatever it is in life that you want to do needs that, or if you just want to learn and you love to learn, then that's cool. But for me, coming from an underprivileged household and like paying for my own college and like working a full-time job and also doing creative stuff on the side, it just didn't make sense to me. So I like dropped out of college without even telling my mom, and I just like pursued what I wanted to do, because to me, I knew that like if I told her, she would hate me, and like it would, or she wouldn't hate me, but she'd be upset, you know, and it would just cause like so much more pain versus me being like, 10 years later, by the way, I dropped out of college, but I'm like super rich now, so it's all good. So yeah, I don't know. I guess for me, it's like, it's my life and I know what I want. And honestly, like, I want to change her life. Like, that's part of what drives me, is like changing my mom's life and like buying her a home, making sure she's okay. So I know what drives me, and I know that I don't need college to get there right now. So I just decided I'm going to be focused on what I want and do it.
Cool.
That's pretty much
Um, it was about
How'd you get your parents on board, or how'd you get like your supporters on board?
That's something I'm thinking about right now, which is why like, okay, so my biggest thing is like I'm really into conceptual art. Like I'm over the idea of retinal, optical, like looking at something. Well, I'm not over it because I can't go that far. But so trying to explain to my dad or my mom, Haitian people, what Duchamp did, like trying to get them to understand it, or that is very hard, especially using English language, like because art is not, the Haitian language is super outside of the circle of art. So and the art culture and conceptual art. So I have to like destroy everything that they, that's in their memory bank to add more things in there for them to understand. So I don't think I'll ever get them to really like understand it or, care about it as I do. But my mom now she sees monetary possibilities.
That's what I was gonna say, because you mentioned that too. Like, as soon as you show a check, it's kind of hard to like.
Yeah, exactly. And even things like this, like the fact that ears are open, listening.
Mm-hmm.
That adds that sort of layer of validation to what, that explanation to your parents. Like, listen, I'm not just at my laptop, like scouring images. Like, there are people who are doing the same thing and who want to talk about this stuff. So, it's all about that.
Perfect.
They care about the money.
They care about the.
Well, this is a loaded question, I guess, for all creatives, because there's such an extensive timeline, and we try to sum it up in such a small amount of sentences. But for me, my mom was born in America, born and raised here in Homestead, so she knows what it is. She comes from a creative background herself. She used to love dancing. And my dad came from Cuba. Of course, there's a cultural gap, and then on top of the age gap, the generation gap. So it's hard to make them understand what we're trying to do, especially when you're at a young age and you barely understand what you're trying to do. It's just not what they want you to do. So for me, at a young age, my mom was like, saw something in me, so she tried to push me in different ways, but everything that she wanted me to do as opposed to what I was trying to do. But to sum it up, I was in high school, not doing my best. And junior year, I was like, hey, so I think it's best that you withdraw me from school, because it's not going to get better from here. And, I had to sit down with my mom and have that conversation. Of course, not with my dad, because it'd probably get violent. But with my mom, and it took a lot. And it was hard to sit with her and be like, hey, look, I'm wasting my time here. Even though that was probably not right. And, I was young and I thought I knew what I was talking about. But my mom was like, all right, well, if you say you're not going to do better and I cannot convince you to do otherwise, please just put your all into whatever it is that you're trying to do. So from withdrawing to school, I worked at Outback Steakhouse for 2 years and then made music. And I thought that was my career. And, you know, she supported me in every way. My dad fully did not understand it until I picked up DJing and, you know, stopped asking for money and stop, you know, going to my parents for almost anything. You know, once he saw that there was progress in what I was doing, he comes from a Spanish culture. So, of course, to explain to him, like, how we're making money off parties or how we're making money off of art, he's just like, open a business. And I was like, okay, I don't know what you want from me, but this is what I'm doing. So my mom was very supportive at an early age. Like I said, she was born here in America, you know, she comes from a background herself. And my dad was more kind of like, we didn't communicate that much. But once he saw progress, once he saw results, it's really not hard to convince your parents that, like, hey, this is what we're doing. It's the new generation. It's a new way to do things. Like, we can make revenue and rely on ourselves through these things. So, you know, I guess driving out of school was definitely a big factor. Did you have a question?
Well, to answer the question that everyone spoke about, my parents, you know, they supported my art and they still do. And even though it started off as a criminal thing, it's transitioned into a professional thing. There's still a criminal aspect involved in what I do, so it's a touchy territory when, you know, I go out there and put my life or my freedom, my family at risk. But they support it. As far as working, what opportunities opened from me sticking with my one style is, I don't know. I've done a lot of collaborations. This last collaboration I did for Art Basel was by far the biggest collaboration I've done. It was with a extra large clothing brand, which was started in LA, but then purchased by a Japanese entrepreneur, and they did a huge block party, whatever. I mean, it revolved around the clothing, and then they activated a block party for Basel.
So that would be a payoff. That would be a payoff point where, like, sticking to the orange, like manifested.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the highest collaboration, the highest like dollar amount I've ever made, and I guess it reached the largest amount of people that I've ever reached on a collaborative level. But I get approached all the time to do collaborations, whether it's you know, painting with someone else or you know, a brand, or like this, talking in a panel, or live. I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff that comes along with my character and works in all sorts of different collaborations. Yeah.
You know, there's something like really interesting that I was talking about with Edny last night, and we were talking about axis, because a lot of times, like, your style depends on what you have to work with. You know, like, I only have this camera when I first started. You know, Edny only had collages and and magazines and whatnot. Do you think that your style relies on the axis that you had when you were young, or not really?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think as an artist and a creative, or whatever it is that you do, you should always just do it to your best capability, and be open to different ideas. And I don't really know, dude.
I guess I mean along the lines of, like, you know, spray cans are cheaper than, like, you know, some fine oil paint with like a horse brush, you know, horsehair brush, you know. So like there's definitely like a bridge of access from like a fine art perspective. You get me? Like, you started spray painting because I'm sure that was like one of the tools that was available to you. right?
Yeah, I think so. I actually got arrested for possession of spray paint when I was under 18. So if you're a minor, you're not supposed to
Even have it.
have spray paint. I don't even think you could purchase spray paint. In some cities, I know Chicago, they don't even sell spray paint in Chicago. I don't understand how that works, but again, I use all mediums. I'm not restricted to just a spray can. So
Hmm.
I like to draw, I like to paint, and I'm open to working with all different mediums. My dream studio, hopefully one day, will have every different medium I could possibly think of in one room.
One space. Cool. And we got a question. Let's get it.
I think there's always growth, like in general, just because like the earth is always spinning and like, you know. But I do think that there's growth right now just because there's so many different crews that are all doing different things for their own people, for their own communities. And even if we're all far, like we're in Kendall right now, I'm sure that like this reverberates to other people who might see videos or might see clips of it or might hear it. So I definitely think that we're growing creatively. I also feel like every few years there's like a shift. Like certain people grow up or get older, move away, like do different things with their lives. Maybe they don't go out anymore. So there's always like a turnover of like new people who are like starting new things and like starting new communities. And I feel like that's really thriving right now.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to like brush. I'm sure you've seen the growth also through like the 3 points perspective, where like you've been around for like around them for a minute, and then it became like this festival where they bring in like artists from all over the world, like some of the biggest artists in the world necessarily. Like through the 3 points eyeglass, like is that like a good perspective for like the growth in Miami and like the growth in
For sure. So we always try to work with as many local organizations, parties, people, artists as possible. So like every year, majority of what's on our grounds is made by local people, or even our lineup is 60% local artists. So we do our best to try and get new people each year.
and like
So we're
build that
not-
bridge. Yeah.
Exactly. So totally. I mean, 3 points is definitely if you want to see like the growth in Miami, I think 3 points is a good reference point just because we do like to work with whatever's current in Miami.
I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. Like I, at the age of 18, was going to the Void, and that's something that Ashley had one of the biggest, parts in. And seeing the people who went there to seeing who goes to parties now. I mean, the reason why I started DJing was the Void. Like I went to the Void and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to DJ, and still knowing Ashley, being on the same platform as Ashley, of course I think growth is insane. Like from what Miami used to be to what Miami is now. And like Ashley said, a lot of people that I think that we found as prominent creatives have left, or, a lot of people who are prominent creatives now have just entered the scene. And being the age that we're at, we're both fairly young, and to see so many people come and go and so many shifts and so many changes in such a small amount of time. Miami's a very young city, I think, with a lot of room to grow, and I think we're finally hitting a point where, we all feel like we're comfortable to stay here and still thrive, but also be able to travel. But Miami's definitely now a place where, we walk out the city and be like, yeah, we're from Miami. We're proud to be from there, and we do have something going on. As opposed to a couple years ago, we kind of were at, a standstill, being like, I don't really know what's going on in the city. But there's always been growth. There's always been, I think, evolving. The city's been evolving crazy, but specifically right now, the city's been growing at an extreme rate.
Atomic, you started bombing in the 80s, so like I'm sure you have a very specific perspective on like growth in general,
I think Miami's art scene is definitely growing. I credit it to Art Basel, the art fair coming here. because then what spun off of Basel was Wynwood, and I talk about this a lot. I say that before Basel and before Wynwood, it was very difficult for a visual artist to make it in Miami. They will go to New York, LA, whatever respective city they wanted to go to. But now I believe that, the arts are growing, and the career, the possibility of succeeding as an artist in whatever form it is, you're able to do it now. And yeah, for artists, Miami's definitely growing.
I'm from San Francisco. Well, I'm not from I'm living in San Francisco right now. No, I'm not. No, I'm still here. So, yeah, I'm living in San Francisco right now, and it seems like the arts are extremely funded there. It's like every block has like a fund to like give back to the arts. Is that what we need? Like, does every community in Miami like at one point have to be like mural ridden, for it to be like a thriving city, or what is the ideal like thriving art cultural Miami? I don't know if anybody can answer that. Does anybody have that with?
I guess it just depends on what your idea of thriving is, because I used to think I wanted to be famous until I saw what it could do to your mind, so thriving could be, I always think, all right, Little Haiti's in threat right now, and I think it's very dumb to not capitalize or monetize the idea of Little Haiti like a little Tokyo or something, because Haiti has it's very dense in culture. So you could think, you can think that art can be a catalyst to thriving, but I think it's just a huge web. It's not just like the murals, because, Serge paints murals everywhere in Little Haiti, but, still, it's going to be painted down like H&M or something on the block or something.
Oh, yeah.
I think funding would be nice. Foundation would be nice.
Yeah,
of course, everybody wants a little bit of money backing behind them, and they definitely want, that support and growth in whatever they're doing. But is it needed? No, we've came this far without it. Miami really didn't have much in, I guess, the art scene or whatever it is. And like he said, Art Basel came around. It started at a very, very small scale, but it's been more about convincing. I don't think Miami's out here begging for funding. We're over here yo, this is why we deserve it. But we've come this far without it. People from Kendall could tell you alone. We come from the suburbs with not many creative resources around us, but we still drive 40 minutes, 30 minutes, wherever to go do what we need to do. It's is funding needed? No, it'll be nice, but we'll make it happen regardless. If we want to do it, we're going to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Yeah, the funding definitely comes behind the ambition, 1000%. Whenever I'm casting crew and stuff, I'm always I don't even give a fuck if you've been at it for 10 years. I just want you to be ambitious, Cool. Do you have any extra questions before we start ramping it down? We got one right there. Let me see. Does Miami have a style?
I think so.
Okay.
I think Miami has culture. I think culture is style. I think our roots are style, When we come down south, we got Trick Daddy, we got Trina, we got 07, 05 juking culture. We got everything. We're it's the dirty South, how we move, how we talk, our slang. It's in our blood. It's we didn't choose to have it this way, but it is what it is. We talk the way we do because we're from here. We're influenced by the people around us, the people who came before us, and the people who come after us. But yeah, Miami has style. I mean, I go to New York, and when I'm talking my shit with somebody from Miami, they look at me crazy, and I'm like, it feels good, because I'm just from Miami. That's how we do it. This is what we do. What that style is, I couldn't define it, to be honest, but, I know when I see it, I know when I'm okay, that person is doing this way because they're from Miami. And I feel like Miami people understand that. And it's a very prideful city as it is. So if we could go somewhere else and rep Miami in any way, whether it's, a Hurricanes hat or it's some type of gear, or being able to play a Trick Daddy record in New York and sing all the lyrics by yourself. Like, we don't care. We're from Miami. We're gonna do it anyways. We're prideful. I think that's where Miami style lies. It's within our culture, our roots.
All right. I like that's a cap, right? That's a good cap statement. Okay. So
I think
yeah,
somebody else had a question
we
on
have
the green
another one?
jacket.
yeah, we could
Oh.
definitely have another question. Any questions?
Wait, did you wanna?
This is a shameless plug. My name is Edny Jean Joseph on Instagram, so you could just look at it. But I failed, like, but at this, Oh, you know what's very interesting? I'm not gonna say her name because I don't want to put her on the spot, but she was a very important woman as far as the hierarchy of college goes. And we have like a ending critique. People look at your work, like, and it's kind of like this where it feels like the moment is important. She saw it. She was like, oh, at the time I couldn't answer because she was very important, and talking back and defending myself just didn't seem like the right thing to do. But she questioned it and was like, why? Because there was a nigga card inside of it. Like, you could, how like cereal boxes come with toys. There was like a, and you would read it and would just eventually be not valid because, obviously I don't think it makes any sense for anyone to buy the privilege to say a word, even though it is kind of ridiculous to stop people from saying a word. But she was like, what if me as a white woman did that? And one of the teachers said, that's the point. The fact that this very sensitive and volatile subject can be handled by only a specific group of people. Because the answer to the question, what if me as a white woman did that, is it would be very different. Like, you can't do it right now because, the climate is just too volatile. But I failed. I don't know what the grade of the project was, but everyone likes it outside of school, so I think the grade probably was an A as far as, like, execution goes, but there's no grade, probably a 0.
All right, cool. We got one in the back. Hit me.
Well, I didn't put any thought into my character. It was a homage to, Obi into the Orange Bowl. So I don't really know much besides that. I just paint, I just repeat the same thing over and over again, and it just it is what it is. I want to branch out into other things, but a lot of people do think I'm only capable of painting that one character, but it doesn't bother me at all. I know what I'm capable of painting, and I told myself I would do 15 years of the character, and I started in 2008, 2010, so I'm almost approaching that 15 years, and we'll see what happens after that. But I still think that there's a lot to do with just one character, and one logo, one name, one event, one style, whatever it is. There's so much going on out there, and you might get lost in the whole slew of other stuff going on if you don't pick one style and stick with it. I'm not saying that's just one image to repeat over and over again. Maybe it's a technique or a color palette or a genre of music or a particular style that you apply towards whatever it is you're doing. I think that it's important to define yourself in what you're doing and not blend in.
Cool.
For me, I guess I had the same problem like the last half of last year. Um, and it was really hard to figure out a way to branch out of doing one specific genre in DJing or being known just as a DJ. For me, I do graphic design. I design all my flyers for my parties, but of course I do that out of necessity because I'm a control freak and I want everything to look a certain way. But I also do photography, and photography is something I'm extremely passionate about, but haven't been able to express it or been taken serious for it because I'm known as a DJ. And they're like, Gio is a DJ. But I'm like, okay, yeah, but let me take this picture of you. It's a matter of really, I guess, like sticking your foot through the door. Like, okay, you're going to label me as a DJ, but I'm going to correct you every time. Like, oh, you're your DJ and a photographer. So let's just stop you right there and let you know that I'm capable of doing so. And being able to extend yourself, you know, if you take yourself serious in whatever it is that you do outside of what you're known for, approach it that way. When you go into a deal, offer these things, you know. People are not going to know that you do these things unless you speak up or you show it or you express it. They'll take you serious if you take yourself serious. It's what this is just come from a personal standpoint. I don't think this is the answer, but for me, lately and moving into this year, you know, I've taken photography serious. I want to be on a point where my photography is to my standard personally. So I've honed in on doing such, you know, practicing, and that way when that, you know, topic comes up in conversation, I'm taken serious. I know what I'm talking about. When it comes to angles, when it comes to lightings, when it comes to marketing, whatever it is, that way when that conversation approaches, it's not just the DJ conversation. It's like, okay, no, I know what I'm talking about. I've done my research. I'm passionate about this, and be able to take on that work. The same way that you started in whatever you're profound in, you know, you start from the ground up. It's kind of hard to start from the ground up when you're already here and you're working on something else and having to figure out like, okay, I have to start from the ground over here and start again. So, you know, just keep doing whatever it is that makes you that income, and then eventually, organically, if you're very passionate about it, the rest will just kind of fall into place.
I think that style is weird to me. Not that it's just innately weird, but just it has weird side effects. Like, if you're really good at doing something like Atomic, I'm sure that at the peak of like people recognizing the orange, I'm sure my mom has seen your orange but doesn't know your name. You know, that's how much it's everywhere. And with that comes like a sort of magic, like ooh, this looks good. So like I've experienced moments where I know someone DM'd me because they saw one photo on my Instagram that they thought was amazing, that they want to replicate again. Not the image itself, but the feeling. So, you know, that just going to the idea of like, is style compass or a cliff? Like, you can judge your direction based on people's oohs and ahs, or you can, you know, look at people's pre-association with certain things as you know, compass to like, oh, okay, if you care about this that much, all right, I'm gonna figure something out. And it's also a way to show you that you have style. If people go ooh and ah, there's a pattern. You'll know. But just I guess it's all about researching, reading, and understanding that what you're talking about makes sense. Like, as crazy as it sounds, it's in your brain and you have to explain it to people. So once you can explain it to people, then it becomes more concrete and it matters.
I would say just release it. Like, just release whatever you like making. I don't know. I feel like I don't really think about style too much because for me, art is more of like an expression, and it's not necessarily something that I mean, hopefully someday I can make money off of it, but right now it's more of just like expressing my feelings. So I say just release it, you know, make a website and like in that sense, I agree with Gio, where like I think you should compartmentalize it. You know, on one end you have what makes you money, and then at the same time you're doing what feeds your soul, because like you need that, you know. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, guys, we're at the time limit of our conversation. I want to give a big round of applause to the panelists for like standing up here and talking to us. I learned a lot, and I'm sure that all of you guys learned a lot. And I'm sure that when we put the video out, please share with people. Please share the knowledge. That's the point of Campout. That's the point of our camp. I want to give a very big shout out to Isabella and her family for letting us use this beautiful home. I want to give another shout out to HGAP because they are continue to be our biggest endorsers, and I love you guys for that. Thank you, Millie's. Millie's provided the food. If you guys don't know where Millie's is, it's in the heart of Kendall. Search him up. Millie's does good for you. Empanadas y tequeños para tirar para el cielo, a lot. Yeah. Brian for the chair, bro. Brian, where you at? Yo. Look at this chair. Look at this stage. This is Fat Belly. And this is Campout. We're going to do another one in 6 months, and we're going to do another one in 6 months after that. And the whole point is to just bring Miami on top and just keep on building. We're building every single day and for the rest of our lives.